Welcome, Keith and Bob. Can you tell me what's going on in Bishopsgate with you guys?
Well, in a few hours' time, Bob and I are going to be talking about a paper called Gay News, which was published between 1972 and 1983 in Britain. And it was the first newspaper in Britain for homosexuals by homosexuals. And we're looking forward to showing some amazing photographs from Bob's extraordinary archive of 3,000 photographs. He's had to
Jesus.
whittle them down to 300 and then to what, 75, and we're still whittling, aren't we? As we speak, we're whittling. It's an old English custom, whittle.
I know, because of the Wolfenden report, suddenly we became illegal, if we legal after, because we were 21 or over. So was that why you guys started?
No, there was an American movement called the Gay Liberation
Mm.
Movement, which started really in the 30s and 40s, but it became a thing in the late 60s on the back of women's liberation, black liberation, etc., etc.
Mm.
And some English people were in the States in the late 60s, early 70s, and they came back to England full of fire and zeal, thinking, well, why can't we have a gay liberation movement? They started something called
Yeah,
GLF,
yeah.
Gay Liberation Front. And Gay News really was a kind of extraordinary child made from the Gay Liberation Front and from an organization called CHE or CHE,
Okay,
the
yeah.
Campaign for Homosexual Equality, because although it was legalized in 67, it was only up from the age of 21
Yeah.
that gay men could have sex. So obviously that just couldn't be acceptable because heterosexuals, the age of consent, I think, was 18, may
Yeah.
have even been 16 in those days. So it was a kind of radical paper, but was also, it had the backing of a conservative sort of group called CHE. So it was a melding of radicalism and conservatism law reform.
Yeah. So in those days, and way before computers, you
Oh,
served you served as a source of information and news, but also as a way of us connecting with each other because you introduced personal gay ads. It upset a lot of people having gay personal ads, if I remember correctly. It was
Oh,
a
of
big
course. Yeah,
hoo-ha.
we were actually banned from a newsagent chain because we included personal ads. Yes, they were obviously clearly meeting places for some kind of sexual engagement eventually. Yes,
Was that
they were.
we're talking about W.H. Smith, the biggest newspaper distributor in the UK. Was that the real reason they gave when they refused to carry the paper?
There
Yeah,
was a court case, and it did involve the personal ad. It also involved a cover with two men kissing
yeah,
on the cover, which was thought to be obscene, etc., etc. So it did cause a problem because it was overt
yeah.
sexuality,
But
whereas films and filming had gay ads which were discreet. They were used euphemism, whereas this really didn't use
No,
euphemism at all.
W.H. Smith didn't stock top shelf material. They were, I think it was a Scottish um, background to the company, and they were, quite religious or
yeah,
squeamish
Ah,
about those
I
sorts of
didn't know
things.
that, Bob.
but we're talking
Mm.
about days when you'd already reached a circulation of like 18, 19,000. Am I correct?
About that, yes, that's right. Yes, yes.
Which for an unknown paper, and because we weren't meant to be that many queers in London anyway, that was a significant achievement.
I think we should say also, Roger, that it sold 19 to 20,000 copies, but it was read, each copy was read by an average of five people.
Wow.
So its circulation was much wider than those figures would suggest.
So this is quite relevant now we're talking today because we're in similar situations like you did with Mrs. Mary Whitehouse. Can you explain to the people around the world who are watching this who the hell she was and what the hell she did?
Mrs. Mary Whitehouse was an ordinary housewife from the Midlands. She wasn't really an ordinary housewife at all. She
No,
was actually
no, no,
part
I
of
like that.
something called the moral rearmament movement, which started at the end of the 30s, was very anti-communist and very anti anything which was irreligious against the Church of England or Christianity in general. And in the early 60s, she gathered together masses of signatures
Yeah.
protesting about the BBC's showing sexual programs, particularly those before 9 o'clock, but also programs after 9 o'clock. And her purlieu was sex, but also homosex as well, which was beginning to creep into television programs during the 1960s. So by the 70s, she was quite a figure, quite a powerful figure. She was involved in something called the Festival of Light, which involved people like Cliff Richard, who was a very, very popular singer. And so in 1976, unbeknownst to me, I was just the features editor. The editor of the paper, Denis Lemon, published a poem called The Love That Dares Speak Its Name, not the love that dares not speak its name. It's the love that dares speak. So this was a radical thing. And it was about Jesus dying or even dead on the cross, being fantasized about by a Roman centurion in the most overt sexual way. It was also accompanied by an illustration which had Christ on the cross. I'm told with a bit of an erection, but I've never looked. I don't know. And it was published. The Christian side of our paper's readership were not happy necessarily. There was a discussion in the letters page, and then all went silent until we looked in the Evening Standard in December 1976, and there was a notice saying that Mrs. Mary Whitehouse had taken out a private prosecution for blasphemous libel against Gay News and its editor. This is the first we'd heard about it. And so suddenly we were thrust into, well, certainly nationwide spotlight, and to a degree, worldwide spotlight, as the first publication sued for blasphemous libel since, I think, 1927. We thought blasphemous libel had completely disappeared, but it was English common law, and it was just waiting for someone like Mary Whitehouse to see a poem like the one we published and to take out a private prosecution. The paper was arraigned at the Old Bailey, one of the oldest English courts, in 1977, and our editor, Denis Lemon, was given a suspended sentence of 18 months imprisonment, and the paper was fined £2,000, which is quite a lot of money then. We were a small paper. The sentence was never put into motion because suspended sentences mean as long as you don't do anything bad in 18 months, you're all right. But it was a severe shock to Denis, and he never really recovered from either the fame which was brought to him or the thought that he could so easily have been put in prison for a poem that he himself should have taken full responsibility for publishing.
I'm shocked, very disappointed, and a little worried about the severity of the sentence. A suspended sentence is a very unpleasant thing to have hanging over one's head. It's particularly difficult if one's editor of a newspaper. Newspapers have to take risks occasionally. Occasionally, editors have to take risks.
Do you intend to appeal against this sentence?
Both the company, both Gay News Limited and myself, will be appealing immediately.
Mary Whitehouse was getting much closer to the source of power, but the BBC completely shunned her. They would not have her on any program at the BBC, so she didn't actually get to the real epicenter, shall we say, of power and influence. But she got very close.
Well, my theory is that I feel that, in a strange way, Denis Lemon felt guilty about owning Gay News. He was the survivor, the sole survivor of a collective that had started Gay News. So Gay News fell into his lap. And I think he felt odd in some ways about it. He felt beholden to it, and Because the curious thing to me is that Denis wanted to move on, for which there is no criticism whatsoever. And at one point, somebody said that he'd wanted to go to Hollywood. He had every right to sell the paper. And if he'd offered it to one of the magazine conglomerates at the time, IPC magazines, for instance, he would have got his £160,000 straight away. So gradually, we, the staff, heard about this, and we knew that this individual, Robert Palmer, he'd been to business school and he knew about the change in the law, and he used that change in the law to acquire the paper with none of his own money. And we thought this was unfair. He was using the assets of the business, which weren't his, to buy the paper.
Where do you find yourself in the annals of gay history? How important is this for us to know about this?
Me personally, I think gay news lives on in so many different ways. About 2 weeks ago, there was a colour supplement in the Observer newspaper, and the front page was a photograph of Leo Varadkar, the ex-Taoiseach of Ireland, who, and the interview was a no-holds-barred interview about his private life in every single way. It named and photographed his partner. There was a small scandal after he had resigned because he and his partner were photographed in a gay club with Leo Varadkar kissing somebody he just picked up. So you have open marriage as part of the discussion as well. So part of the reason I think there's so much more to be done is that things keep passing us by. Books come out. Turns out that so-and-so, Rock Hudson or whatever, it's a long time ago now, but his equivalents, they're gay, they want to talk about it.
But I think the message is, we have a history. Gay news is part of that history. And of course, what our enemies don't realize is, like daisies, we're unkillable. Why? Because heterosexuals keep on enjoying themselves. And I just say, good on heterosexuals, because they'll be producing more of us.
I know you know how far we've come. When I sat down a few years ago and was interviewing Tab Hunter, and I think this is how far we've come. There am I, a small queer gay outlet, and I'm interviewing one of the biggest film stars who was openly gay and openly relaxed about by then. So we've come a long way.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased you're doing this, and if they don't get down to Bishopsgate now, there's a gay archive there as well, isn't there?
It certainly
Yes.
is. It's magnificent. You talk about that.
It varies from tattoos to leather fetish to
the
almost
sexiest place in London.
And if you're watching this from around the globe, and a lot of you are, please put the Bishopsgate Institute on your places to visit when you go to London. It's so worth it. It's important for all of us, no matter how young or old, we know our own history. Thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you so much, Roger. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Pictures of naked young women are fun. In tidbits of Playboy, page 3 of The Sun. There's no nudes in gay news or one magazine, but they still